Brianna Campbell thought she had outrun the shadows. For years, she lived on the fringes of Seoul, swapping the thrill of forbidden passion for isolation and constant dread. Knowing her daughter, Kendra, was the secret heir to the Korean Mafia's iron fist, Do Hwan Kang. She hid the baby from the ruthless boss, but she never grasped the fierce loyalty burning beneath his cold exterior. Tonight, the fragile peace shatters. He has finally tracked them down, carrying not just the violence she always anticipated, but a devotion so profound it eclipses every fear. Brianna understood that some romances weren't sparks of bliss, but tidal waves meant to drown. To be entangled with Do Hwan Kang, the overlord of the sprawling Kang syndicate, a man whose authority silenced boardrooms and bent empires to his will, was to dance on the blade of a knife. She had savored the intoxicating heat of his gaze, the possessive strength of his arms, and the stark terror of his reality. That terror was why she had orchestrated her vanishing act with ruthless precision years ago, fleeing Seoul's neon chaos for the muted haze of its outskirts. In a modest apartment tucked amid forgotten alleyways, her home was deliberately unassuming, shrouded by the indifferent hum of the city, where the air carried the scent of street food and rain-slicked pavement, not the heavy mix of tailored suits, exotic cologne, and the subtle metallic tang of concealed weapons that defined Du Hwan's domain. Her life now revolved around careful invisible routines. A low-key job at a neighborhood bakery, anonymous cash transactions, and an unbreakable vow to shield her 3-year-old daughter, Kendra. Kendra was the most precious, perilous secret Brianna guarded. The child was a stunning fusion. Brianna's warm, sun-kissed Jamaican glow and vibrant spirit blended with the sharp, unyielding intensity of her Korean father. Kendra's eyes were the giveaway. Deep, piercing pools mirroring Du Hwan's own, framed by curls that danced like a storm. "Mama, look, a tiny castle." Kendra giggled, pointing to a crack in the apartment wall where sunlight filtered through like a hidden gem. She wore mismatched socks, one striped and one polka-dotted, a quirky touch that always coaxed a genuine smile from Brianna, a rare break in her guarded world. Brianna knelt, the worn floor creaking under her, her hand instinctively clasping Kendra's tiny one. The watchfulness never faded. "That's a strong castle for a brave little explorer," she whispered, inhaling the sweet scent of Kendra's hair, a reminder of why she had become a ghost. "We protect the precious things." This was the holy mission fueling her seclusion. She had witnessed the carnage Du Hwan's rivals unleashed. In his arena, children were pawns, and affection was the first weakness to be weaponized. Du Hwan, with his ironclad code and towering pride, would never tolerate their daughter being concealed. He would have dragged the fight to their doorstep, encasing them in a fortress that felt more like chains to Brianna. She had opted for Kendra's untamed freedom over a life of gilded surveillance. The getaway had stripped her bare, severing ties to her Jamaican roots and family to shield them from the storm. She left Du Hwan nothing but a cryptic note tucked in a forgotten ledger he rarely checked. A simple plea for a life where every dawn wasn't a risk. She gave no clues, especially not about the child growing within her. She knew the fury of mere desertion. She couldn't fathom the havoc of him uncovering an air worlds away. Before we dive into this thrilling tale of love and danger, hit that subscribe button and comment below where you're watching from: Jamaica, Korea, or somewhere in between. Let's build this community together. In the opulent, fortified heart of the Kang Syndicate's Seoul headquarters, a seamless merge of ancient tradition and cutting-edge dominance, Du Hwan Kang existed in a perpetual storm of restrained rage. His operations hummed with flawless efficiency, a reflection of his unyielding command. But his inner world was a barren void, tormented by the ghost of Brianna Campbell. Her vanishing years ago wasn't just a betrayal, it was a fracture in the universe. Du Hwan, who orchestrated fortunes and fates, who measured loyalty in blood, had failed to trace one woman who evaporated like mist. It was a blow to his legacy, a ridicule of his dominion, and an unspoken torment he buried deep. His hunt had been unyielding, exhaustive, and humiliatingly barren. His elite trackers combed every shadow and signal. Min Jae, his steadfast second in command, stood in the sleek penthouse lair, worry etching his features over the toll on their empire. "Boss, the rival clans are probing our borders," Min Jae urged, voice steady but urgent. "This personal quest is pulling us thin." Du Hwan stared out at Seoul's endless glow, his tailored suit impeccable, tribal tattoos peeking from his collar like ancient warnings. His eyes, usually voids of calculated ice, flickered with haunted fire. "The clans are fleas, Min Jae. They can wait. Brianna is the poison eroding my core. Cut it out, and the syndicate thrives." He wasn't poring over reports. He was chasing Echo's old financial trails from their affair. A fleeting mention of outskirts peace she once whispered in jest. It was sentimental folly, but desperation clawed at him. He deployed cutting-edge scans on global records, hunting that phrase. After years of silence, it surfaced. A faint echo in a sole property log, a cash deal for an overlooked apartment linked to one of his dormant contacts. The trace was infinitesimal, but real. He synced it with surveillance feeds and drone imagery. He didn't find a stranger. He found Brianna, and beside her, a small, curly-haired shadow, a child. Dujuan's world lurched. The icy rage melted into a tectonic revelation. He gazed at the footage. A woman with radiant strength pursuing a toddler whose features echoed his own. "Ready the car now," Dujuan ordered, his voice trembling with bridled intensity. "Take 2 men. No weapons, no show of force. I won't storm her like an enemy. Not yet." Min Jae, unnerved by the raw emotion in his leader's eyes, bowed. "And tell my family," Dujuan murmured, "that their bloodline has been reclaimed." It was dusk in the outskirts, the city lights flickering like distant threats. Brianna stood by the window, stirring a simple stew, the warm aroma of spices filling the dim room. Kendra should have been playing quietly, but the gathering shadows outside stirred her unease. Brianna hummed a Jamaican lullaby, the evening hush oddly comforting, when her instincts screamed. The fine hairs on her arms rose. The humming ceased. She spotted it first, the sleek black sedan idling beyond the curtains, an ominous intruder in her safe haven. Then the men, 2 towering, disciplined figures moving with lethal precision. And finally, Dujuan Kang. He emerged from the twilight, his trench coat catching the light, tribal tattoos snaking up his neck like marks of his unforgiving heritage. He was a vision of lethal elegance, too commanding, too perilous for this humble space, a legend made flesh on her doorstep. Brianna's instincts ignited before logic could. She darted toward the hidden safe, grabbing her emergency bag and a concealed knife. Flee now! She knew these streets like veins, better than any thug he sent. But Kendra, roused by the creaking door and Brianna's frantic motion, toddled out, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, what's that noise? Are we playing hide?" Kendra's voice was pure, puzzled, and piercing in the charged quiet. Dujuan, ascending the steps, froze. He had come for the woman who shattered him, the one who stole his heart. But the child's high, clear tone halted him. His gaze dropped from Brianna, framed in the doorway, to the toddler clutching a stuffed toy, standing by the table in the soft lamplight. In the room's glow, the truth slammed into him like a bullet. The determined jaw, the deep eyes, the blend of cultures, they were his. They were the Kang legacy, one he never knew existed. Dujuan stood rigid, breath shallow. The vast power he commanded evaporated, leaving him merely a man, a father, beholding his hidden miracle. He uttered her name, a broken whisper from a voice unused to fragility. "Kendra." Kendra peered at the imposing stranger, noting his intense stare and rain-dampened coat. She took a tentative step, tilting her head. "You're all shiny and wet," Kendra said, pointing at his tattoos peeking like secrets. She pondered, then asked what mattered most. "Are you the shadow man from Mama's stories?" Brianna watched the shattering awareness cross Dujuan's face. The claim, the tenderness, the storm. She knew her fragile sanctuary was obliterated. The fight for Kendra's future and her own heart had ignited. The evening shadows deepened outside the apartment, a stormy prelude to the upheaval exploding in Brianna Campbell's quiet life. Yet inside, a hush heavier than Soul's fog settled. Kendra's innocent query, "Are you the shadow man from Mama's stories?" lingered, a delicate thread separating 2 realms. Dujuan Kang didn't advance. He was a titan used to decrees, deals, and dominance. But his daughter's sight left him speechless. His piercing eyes, typically reservoirs of ruthless strategy, locked on Kendra's face, mapping the undeniable heritage back to him. The epiphany was earth-shaking. He felt his unassailable foundation crumble. Brianna, however, surged with raw, maternal fury. The days shattered, giving way to the iron resolve that her guardianship of Kendra was ending. "Leave," Brianna snarled, her voice a sharp, venomous edge cutting the tension. She positioned herself firmly between Dujuan and Kendra. "You don't belong here." Dujuan blinked at last, his eyes shifting to Brianna. Gone was the Mafia lord's icy mask. In its place, a raw, wrenching grief that nearly felled her. "Years," he breathed, thick with shock and blame. "Years, Brianna. You made me think you'd just vanished. You carried this, our daughter. Kendra, feeling her mother's quake, clung to Brianna's leg. Mama, is he the bad storm? Brianna glanced down, mustering a smile that masked her turmoil. No, sweetie. He's just misplaced. Go to your room now, okay? Mama needs to guide him away. Kendra wavered, eyeing her mother's tension and the formidable man at the threshold. Du-Hwan observed the bond, the effortless maternal tie, and his anguish sharpened. He was the intruder, a fearsome specter in the dusk, cast as a villain by the woman he adored who had evidently never ceased cherishing their child. I won't go, Du-Hwan declared, his tone reclaiming a sliver of its commanding edge, though laced with tremor. He crossed into the room, his presence tattoos stark against his collar, overwhelming the cozy space with the scent of rain and resolve. You concealed her, Brianna. You robbed me of my daughter, my bloodline, and doomed her to this hidden existence when she merits the world my empire offers. And what world is that, Du-Hwan? Brianna fired back, fists clenched, poised to defend with everything. One of blood and shadows? I didn't rob her, I rescued her. Rescued her from an existence where alliances are traps and innocence is collateral. I loved you deeply. But I saw the ruins, Du-Hwan. I saw the fallout. I knew loving you meant a grave for her. I picked peace, Du-Hwan. I picked a free life over your glittering, deadly crown. Du-Hwan recoiled as if wounded. This raw confession peeled back the layers of their shared history, the passionate affair that birthed Kendra, the violent shadows that forced Brianna's flight, and the relentless pursuit that now threatened to redefine everything. Du-Hwan recoiled as if wounded, his tribal tattoos shifting like shadows under the dim apartment light as he absorbed Brianna's words. The air between them thickened, charged with years of unspoken pain and the faint scent of her stew still simmering on the stove, a stark reminder of the ordinary life she had clawed out for herself and Kendra. Kendra, oblivious to the storm, tugged at Brianna's sleeve, her small voice cutting through the tension like a fragile melody. Mama, the shadow man looks sad. Can he have some stew? Brianna's heart twisted. She scooped Kendra up, holding her close, her body a shield against the man who had once been her everything in her nightmare. Not now, sweetie. Go play in your room. Mama's talking. Kendra pouted but obeyed, toddling away with her toy, leaving the adults in a silence that screamed. Du-Hwan's eyes followed her. A flicker of something raw and unguarded crossing his features, regret, perhaps, or the dawning weight of fatherhood. But Brianna wouldn't let him in that easily. You heard me, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Leave, Du-Hwan, before this gets uglier. He didn't move, his presence filling the room like an unyielding force. Ugly? You think this is ugly? You have no idea the hell I've endured searching for you. His voice, usually a blade of command, cracked with the strain of suppressed emotion. He stepped closer, not aggressively, but with the deliberate poise of a man who controlled empires. The tattoos on his neck, intricate patterns of ancient Korean symbols twisted with modern menace, seemed to pulse in the low light, a visual echo of the syndicate he ruled. Sit down, Brianna. You owe me that much. Let me explain how I found you, how I've been tearing Seoul apart for years. Brianna hesitated, her instincts screaming to bolt, to grab Kendra and vanish into the night again. But something in his eyes, that piercing depth she once drowned in, held her. She couldn't run forever. The black sedan outside, with its shadowed occupants, made that clear. His men were already here, a silent perimeter around her fragile world. Reluctantly, she nodded, gesturing to a worn chair by the table. Fine, talk. But if you so much as raise your voice, we're gone. Du-Hwan sat, his tailored coat dripping rainwater onto the floor, a small puddle forming like tears unshed. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and began, his words weaving back through time, pulling her into the vortex of his obsession. It had started the day she disappeared, he said, that cryptic note in the ledger mocking him from his opulent office in Gangnam. Seoul's glittering skyline had mocked him too, a city he owned in shadows but couldn't bend to find one woman. At first, it was fury, a betrayal that scorched his pride. But as months turned to years, it morphed into something deeper, a gnawing void that no amount of power could fill. I thought you'd left me for another life, he admitted, his gaze distant, as if reliving the endless nights. But I couldn't let go. You were the only one who saw beyond the boss, beyond the tattoos and the blood. Various locations across Seoul had become his hunting grounds. He started with the obvious, hacking into immigration databases, scouring flight manifests from Incheon Airport, deploying facial recognition algorithms tuned to her Jamaican features amid the sea of Korean faces. But Brianna had been smart, too smart. No digital footprints, no bank trails. So he went underhanded, dipping into the syndicate's darker arsenal. In the underbelly of Itaewon, where expats and shadows mingled, he bribed informants, Jamaican expatriates who might have heard whispers of a woman matching her description. I offered fortunes, he said, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. One man claimed you'd fled to the Caribbean. I sent operatives there, wasted months chasing ghosts. Brianna listened, her arms crossed, the apartment's curtains fluttering like uneasy breaths. She remembered those early days of hiding, changing her name, dyeing her hair, blending into Seoul's multicultural fringes. But Duhwan's reach was insidious. He shifted to advanced tech, AI-driven surveillance from his headquarters in Yoido, where servers hummed with data scraped from social media, traffic cams, and even bakery supply chains. Your job? He revealed, eyes locking on hers. That little bakery in the outskirts. A loyal operative posed as a supplier, cross-referenced employee logs. Nothing at first. But then, a pattern. Cash payments, always on the same days. And a child's drawing left on a counter, once curly hair, dark skin. It was a thread. Her stomach churned. She had been so careful, but Kendra's innocent sketches, pinned to the fridge at work, had betrayed them. Duhwan leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. I escalated. Covert operations drones over neighborhoods, bugs in public phones you might use. Min Jae led a team through the back alleys of Mapo-gu, bribing landlords for tenant lists. We hit dead ends until a utility bill, paid in cash but linked to an old alias you used once. It led here. He gestured to the apartment, the weight of his pursuit hanging heavy. I didn't come with an army, Brianna, just enough to ensure you couldn't slip away again. But when I saw the footage, our child, everything changed. Brianna's mind raced, flashing to her own side of the story. Unaware of his closing net, she had lived in blissful ignorance, baking bread by day, reading Kendra bedtime stories by night. The black sedan had been her first clue, pulling up like a predator in the twilight. Now, with his men outside and Duhwan inside, the decision loomed. Run again, drag Kendra into another frantic escape, or face the ghost who haunted her dreams. Running meant more isolation, more fear etching lines into her face. Facing him meant risking everything: the Mafia's grip, the violence she fled. But as she looked at him, the man whose love had once set her world ablaze, she realized hiding forever wasn't living. Kendra deserved more than shadows. I didn't hide her to hurt you, Brianna said finally, her voice softening despite herself. I hid her to save her from your world, from the enemies who would use her against you. Duhwan reached out, his hand hovering near hers, not quite touching. Then let me protect you both. My obsession wasn't just to find you, it was to bring you home. The words hung, a bridge between their fractured past and an uncertain future. Brianna stood, glancing toward Kendra's room, steeling herself. The confrontation was inevitable now. No longer a distant threat, but a storm breaking over them. She would face it, not as the woman who ran, but as the mother who fought. Brianna's resolve hardened like steel in the dim glow of her apartment, the simmering stew forgotten on the stove as its aroma mingled with the sharp scent of rain from Duhwan's coat. She stood there, arms still crossed, the weight of his words, "Let me protect you both," hanging in the air like a precarious promise. The black sedan idled outside, a silent sentinel, but inside these walls, the real storm brewed. Duhwan rose slowly from the chair, his movements deliberate, exuding the calm authority that had built and broken empires. His tribal tattoos, visible above his collar, seemed to writhe in the flickering light from the single lamp, symbols of a legacy steeped in blood and loyalty. He wasn't raging, as she had feared in her nightmares. Instead, his gaze was intense, calculating, peeling back her defenses layer by layer. It was the same look that had once drawn her in, a magnetic pull that whispered of passion and peril. The tension was palpable, thickening the space between them until it felt like a physical barrier. Brianna's heart pounded, torn in two. One half remembered the man who had swept her into a whirlwind affair, his touches like fire against her skin, his whispers promising a world beyond the ordinary. The other half recoiled at the power he wielded, the Korean Mafia boss whose name alone silenced rooms, whose enemies vanished in the night. She had fled that power, built walls around her heart and Kendra's future, but now he stood here, dismantling them with his mere presence. This isn't about empires or explanations anymore, Duhwan said, his voice low and steady, like the rumble of distant thunder. I need to see her. Kendra, our daughter. The demand hung there, not barked as an order, but delivered with an undercurrent of desperation that surprised her. His eyes, those deep obsidian pools, bored into hers, pleading in a way his pride rarely allowed. Brianna hesitated, her breath catching. Every instinct screamed to deny him, to bundle Kendra up and bolt through the back door into Seoul's labyrinthine streets. She knew the moment he laid eyes on their daughter, the fragile balance she had maintained would shatter irrevocably. Kendra was more than a child. She was living proof of their tangled past, a bridge between Brianna's Jamaican warmth and Du-hwan's Korean steel. To let him see her would invite the Mafia's shadows into their light, turning Kendra into an heir, a target. "You don't get to just demand that," Brianna whispered, her voice laced with defiance and a tremor of old affection. "She's not a prize in your game. She's mine, ours, yes, but I've kept her safe from all this." Her mind flashed to the uploaded image that had haunted her thoughts. The three of them in a dimly lit room, Du-hwan's tattooed form leaning in with unexpected tenderness, Kendra's tiny hand reaching out. Brianna caught between protection and pull. It was too real, too close to this moment. Du-hwan didn't advance, respecting the invisible line she had drawn, but his expression softened, the calculating edge giving way to something vulnerable. "Please, Brianna, I've searched for years, torn apart this city for a glimpse of what I lost. If she's mine, I need to know." The plea in his tone, so foreign from the syndicate overlord, chipped at her resolve. She glanced toward Kendra's room, where faint sounds of play drifted out, innocent giggles that pierced her like arrows. Realizing she couldn't shield her forever, not with his men outside and the truth already spilling out, Brianna nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But you stay here, and if you scare her..." Her warning trailed off, heavy with unspoken threats. She slipped into the small bedroom, the walls adorned with Kendra's crayon drawings of sunny beaches and towering cities, a blend of her mother's Jamaican tales and an instinctive pull toward the urban sprawl she had never known. Kendra sat on the floor, stacking blocks into a wobbly tower, her curls bouncing as she looked up. "Mama, is the shadow man gone?" Brianna knelt, forcing a smile. "Not yet, sweetie. He wants to meet you. But remember, Mama's right here." Kendra's eyes, mirrors of Du-hwan's, sparkled with curiosity rather than fear. Taking her daughter's hand, Brianna led her back to the living room, her pulse thundering like a war drum. The truth began to unravel the instant they re-entered. Du-hwan's gaze locked on Kendra, and time seemed to freeze. He took in her features, the warm glow of Brianna's heritage in her skin, the sharp intensity in her eyes that echoed his own, the unruly curls framing a face that could have been sculpted from their shared DNA. Kendra stared back, unafraid, clutching her toy as she tilted her head. "You have pictures on your neck?" she said matter-of-factly, pointing at his tattoos. Like a storybook dragon, Du-hwan's breath hitched, his calm facade cracking like ice under pressure. He knelt slowly, bringing himself to her level, his massive frame suddenly seeming smaller, more human. Shock rippled through him, visible in the widening of his eyes, the slight tremble in his hands. This was no abstract heir, no pawn in his empire. This was his daughter, flesh and blood, a piece of him he never knew existed. "Kendra," he murmured, the name a reverent whisper. Beneath the shock, something deeper stirred, an emotion he hadn't felt in years, buried under layers of control and violence. Love, pure, unfiltered, the kind that reshaped worlds. He wasn't just the Mafia boss seeking revenge or reclamation anymore. He was a father, yearning for the family he had unknowingly lost. Tears glistened in his eyes, unbidden, as he extended a hand. "I'm your father. I've waited so long to find you." Brianna watched, her own heart fracturing. The love she once felt for him surged, clashing with the fear of what this meant. Kendra, sensing the gravity, glanced at her mother for reassurance before taking a tentative step forward. "Father, like in stories?" Du-hwan nodded, his voice thick. "Yes, and I promise, I'll protect you both. No more hiding." The room felt smaller, the air electric with possibility and peril. For Du-hwan, the pursuit had ended not in conquest, but in this fragile reunion, a shift from power's cold grip to family's warm embrace. But Brianna knew the real battle was just beginning, as the shadows of his empire loomed ever closer. The apartment's dim light cast long shadows across the room, mirroring the uncertainty that now enveloped Brianna, Du-hwan, and Kendra. Du-hwan remained kneeling, his hand extended toward his daughter, the tribal tattoos on his neck a stark reminder of the world he inhabited. Kendra, with the unfiltered curiosity of a child, placed her small palm in his, her touch like a spark igniting something long dormant in him. Brianna watched, frozen, as a tentative smile broke across Dujuan's face, the first genuine one she had seen since their affair's fiery days. Like a dragon's hand, Kendra giggled, tracing a finger over his calloused skin. The moment stretched, fragile and profound, until Brianna cleared her throat. "That's enough for tonight," she said, her voice firm but laced with the old pull of affection. Dujuan stood, nodding reluctantly. "I'll go. But this isn't over. Brianna, we need to talk properly." As he left, the black sedan pulling away into Seoul's neon-veined night, Brianna locked the door, her mind a whirlwind. The reunion had cracked open doors she thought sealed forever. In the days that followed, Dujuan's presence wove into their lives like an insistent thread, pulling them across various corners of Seoul. He didn't force it. Instead, he appeared with calculated restraint, always under the guise of protection his men discreetly stationed nearby, shadows in the bustling city. Their first outing was to a quiet park in Namsan, where cherry blossoms clung to branches like fleeting hopes. Dujuan arrived in an understated car, shedding his trench coat to reveal a simple shirt that did little to hide his commanding build. Kendra ran ahead, chasing pigeons across the grass, her laughter a melody that seemed to soften the edges of his world-weary eyes. "She's fearless," he murmured to Brianna as they walked a path lined with ancient pines. "Like you." Brianna kept her distance, arms crossed, but couldn't ignore the way Kendra gravitated toward him, showing off a flower she picked. Dujuan knelt again, listening intently as she babbled about magic petals. For the first time, he felt the full weight of his actions crashing down not as a boss tallying losses, but as a man confronting the void he had created. He had always been driven by control and power, forging the Kang Syndicate from Seoul's underbelly into an untouchable empire. Rivals quaked at his name, and loyalty was enforced with an iron fist. But here, in this sun-dappled park, faced with Kendra's undeniable bond to him, her eyes mirroring his, her spirited laugh echoing a joy he had long forgotten, Dujuan began to unravel. That evening, in a secluded cafe in Insadong, surrounded by the aroma of steaming tea and street artists' sketches, he confessed fragments of his turmoil. Kendra napped in Brianna's lap, exhausted from the day, while Dujuan stirred his cup absently. "I've built everything on power," he said, his voice low, intense gaze fixed on the sleeping child. "But seeing her, it's like staring at a mirror of what I could have been. My violent past, the deals, the blood, it's a chain I've worn proudly. Now, it feels like a cage." He reached out, hesitating before gently brushing a curl from Kendra's forehead. The gesture was tender, vulnerable, a far cry from the Mafia lord who orchestrated takedowns in boardrooms and back alleys. Despite the scars of his life, he was drawn to her inexorably, a paternal instinct awakening. A part of him yearned to be the father she deserved, even if it meant loosening his grip on the empire he had bled for delegating operations, stepping back from the front lines. Brianna, however, remained reluctant, her heart a battlefield of love and fear. In the cafe's warm glow, she pulled Kendra closer, her Jamaican lilt sharpening with protectiveness. "You say that now, but your world isn't something you just step away from. Dujuan, I've seen it, the late-night calls, the business that leaves bodies in its wake. Kendra's innocence? It'll be the first thing it destroys." Her eyes, fierce and haunted, met his. She remembered their affair's passion, the way his strength had made her feel alive, but also the terror of witnessing a rival's disappearance. Now, as they moved to a safe house on the outskirts, a sleek, hidden penthouse overlooking the Han River, where Dujuan insisted they stay for safety, the tug-of-war intensified. Kendra played with toys he had brought, simple wooden blocks etched with Korean folk tales, while Brianna and Dujuan argued in hushed tones by the window. "I can change," he insisted, his hand grazing hers, sending sparks of old desire through her. "For her, for us. Let me prove it. No more hiding, I'll shield you both." But Brianna pulled away, the river's lights reflecting her inner turmoil. "Love isn't enough in your reality. Duty to your syndicate. The brutal games, they'll pull you back, and us with you. Kendra deserves playgrounds, not bodyguards." The complex pull between them deepened, his growing love for their family clashing with her duty to protect Kendra's purity, all against the Mafia's unforgiving backdrop. In quiet moments, like watching Kendra draw at the safe house table, Dujuan felt the realization solidify he wanted this bond more than any throne. Yet Brianna's reluctance lingered, a barrier forged in fear, as Seoul's shadows whispered of dangers yet to come. The safe house's panoramic view of the Han River faded into memory as Du Huan insisted on relocating them to his mansion in the affluent hills of Songbuk-dong, a sprawling fortress disguised as luxury, where ancient Korean architecture blended with modern fortifications. Brianna had resisted at first, but the veiled threats and anonymous messages on her old phone whispers of, "We know where you hide," left her little choice. Now, weeks into this uneasy arrangement, the opulent halls echoed with Kendra's laughter, a stark contrast to the undercurrent of tension simmering between her parents. Du-hwan had settled into a dual role with the precision of a man accustomed to juggling empires. By day, a tentative father teaching Kendra simple Korean phrases over breakfast in the sunlit atrium. By night, the unyielding Mafia boss vanishing into his headquarters in the city's shadowy core, orchestrating deals that kept the Kang Syndicate's grip ironclad. Brianna noticed the strain immediately, like cracks spiderwebbing across fragile glass. In the mansion's grand living room, adorned with silk tapestries and hidden security panels, she watched Du-hwan bounce Kendra on his knee, his tribal tattoos peeking from his shirt as he murmured stories of mythical dragons. Kendra giggled, her curls bouncing, utterly enchanted by this dragon daddy who brought her treats from bustling markets. But Brianna saw the shadows in his eyes, the way his phone buzzed incessantly, pulling him away mid-story to handle business. His devotion to the Empire clashed violently with his budding love for Kendra, creating a rift that widened daily. One evening, as twilight painted the mansion's gardens in hues of amber, Brianna confronted him in the study, Kendra asleep upstairs under the watchful eye of a discreet nanny. "You're splitting yourself in two, Du-hwan," she said, her voice a mix of concern and accusation, her Jamaican warmth infusing the words with rhythmic intensity. "That call just now another meeting? How long before your world bleeds into hers?" Du-hwan set down his glass of aged whiskey, his gaze intense but weary, the weight of his dual life etching lines around his eyes. "This is who I am, Brianna. The syndicate isn't something I can just abandon, it's what protects us." He stepped closer, his hand brushing her arm, reigniting sparks of their old passion. But Brianna pulled back, fear for their safety fueling her resolve. She had glimpsed the headquarters once, a sleek bunker in Uito's financial district, where holographic maps tracked rivals and armed guards patrolled like silent predators. There, Du-hwan was the unchallenged king, his orders dispatching enforcers into Seoul's underbelly. Here, in the mansion, that control seeped into their lives, security protocols dictating their movements, his men shadowing Kendra's playtime. "You're suffocating us," Brianna pushed back, her voice rising as she paced the room, the scent of blooming jasmine from the garden wafting in like a false promise of peace. "I won't let Kendra grow up in a gilded cage, always looking over her shoulder. If it means challenging you, so be it. I'll take her and run again." Her determination burned, a mother's fierce duty clashing against his authoritative hold, turning their rekindled connection into a battlefield of love and power. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit war room of the headquarters, Du-hwan's enemies began to circle like sharks scenting blood. Word had spread through Seoul's criminal networks. The iron-fisted boss was softening, distracted by a mysterious woman and child holed up in his mansion. Rival clans, long suppressed by his dominance, saw opportunity in his vulnerability. Min-jae, his loyal second-in-command, delivered the report during a late-night briefing, holographic displays flickering with intercepted communications. "The Lee family is probing, boss," Min-jae said, his face grim under the harsh lights. "They've got whispers of your new family. One of their operatives was spotted near the mansion testing our perimeter." Du-hwan's jaw tightened, his tattoos seeming to darken as he studied the maps. His change in behavior, fewer brutal crackdowns, more time away from the front lines had emboldened them. An encrypted message from a Lee enforcer flashed on screen. "The dragon's heart is exposed. Strike now." The threat was clear. They would use Kendra and Brianna as leverage, turning his love into a weapon against him. Back at the mansion, Brianna pieced it together from overheard calls and the increased security guards patrolling the manicured lawns, drones humming overhead like vigilant insects. One stormy night, as thunder rattled the windows, she found Du-hwan in the study, poring over surveillance feeds from headquarters. Kendra had woken from a nightmare, clinging to Brianna's side, her small frame a reminder of what was at stake. "They're coming for us, aren't they?" Brianna asked, her voice steady despite the fear knotting her stomach. Du-hwan looked up, the calculating Mafia boss resurfacing in his eyes. "Yes, but I'll handle it. This is what I do." For the first time, Brianna realized the brutal truth. The very violence and manipulation she sought to shield Kendra from might be their only salvation. In this world of shadows, Du Juan's control, his empire's ruthless machinery, could be the fortress keeping them alive. Yet as she held Kendra close, watching him orchestrate countermeasures with cold efficiency, the tension in their relationship deepened. Love pulled them together, but the Mafia's grip threatened to tear them apart, forcing Brianna to question if redemption could truly coexist with such darkness. The storm that had rattled the mansion's windows that night lingered in Brianna's mind like an omen, its thunder echoing the growing unrest in Du Juan's empire. Days blurred into a tense routine, heightened security at the mansion, cryptic updates from headquarters, and stolen moments where Du Juan's softer side emerged, reading Kendra bedtime stories in the opulent library, his voice weaving tales of ancient Korean warriors with a gentleness that clashed against his tattooed exterior. Yet Brianna couldn't shake the dread. The Mafia's shadows were closing in, and she sensed the fragility of their bubble. Du Juan, ever the strategist, had moved them temporarily to a fortified safe house on the outskirts of Seoul, a nondescript warehouse converted into a high-tech bunker, hidden amid industrial sprawl. Just precautions, he assured her, but his eyes betrayed the storm brewing within his ranks. It started with a whisper of doubt. Min-jae, Du Juan's steadfast second-in-command, had been acting off lingering glances at Kendra during briefings, hurried calls and hushed tones. Du Juan trusted him implicitly. They had built the syndicate together, brothers in blood and betrayal. But ambition festered in the empire's undercurrents, and Min-jae, sensing his boss's divided loyalties, saw an opening. Late one evening, as rain pelted the safe house's reinforced windows, Min-jae made his move. He slipped into the control room, overriding security protocols with codes only a trusted insider could know. His plan was calculated: use Kendra as leverage to force Du Juan's hand, demanding he step down and hand over the syndicate's reins. The dragon's grown soft, Min-jae muttered to his covert allies over a encrypted line, and the child is the key. The betrayal struck like a blade in the dark. Brianna was tucking Kendra into a makeshift bed in the safe house's secure wing when alarms blared, red lights flashing, doors sealing with mechanical whirs. "Mama, what's that noise?" Kendra whimpered, clutching her toy dragon, a gift from Du Juan. Brianna's heart raced. She scooped her up, instincts screaming danger. In the headquarters across town, Du Juan received the frantic alert: intruders breaching the safe house perimeter, led by none other than Min-jae. Surveillance feeds showed his once loyal lieutenant directing armed men, their faces masked but movements precise. "Surrender the Empire, boss," Min-jae's voice crackled over the comms, hijacked for all to hear. "Or the girl pays the price. You've gone weak family over power. I'll take what's mine." Du Juan's face hardened in the headquarters war room, holographic displays illuminating his fury. The manipulation cut deep. Min-jae knew Kendra was his vulnerability, a pawn to dismantle his control. The situation escalated rapidly, forcing Du Juan into drastic measures. He mobilized an elite strike team, racing through Seoul's rain-slicked streets in armored vehicles, his mind a whirlwind of strategy and paternal rage. "No one touches them," he growled to his remaining loyalists, the tribal tattoos on his neck pulsing with each clenched muscle. At the safe house, chaos erupted. Min-jae's men stormed the outer defenses, gunfire echoing like thunderclaps, shattering the industrial quiet. Brianna barricaded herself in the inner chamber, holding Kendra close, whispering Jamaican lullabies to drown out the violence. "Stay down, sweetie. Daddy's coming." But doubt gnawed at her. Was this the life she feared, now crashing down? Du Juan arrived like a tempest, breaching the safe house with surgical precision. The intense scene of power struggles unfolded in the dimly lit corridors, a brutal ballet of loyalty and betrayal. Min-jae confronted him in the main hall, flanked by turncoats, Kendra's distant cries audible through the walls. "You chose love over the syndicate," Min-jae sneered, weapon drawn, his face twisted in opportunistic greed. "Hand it over, or she dies." Du Juan's eyes, cold and calculating, met his betrayer's. "You were like a brother," he said, voice steady, but beneath it burned a father's unyielding fire. The struggle ignited fists and bullets flying in a whirlwind of combat. Du Juan disarmed one assailant with a swift strike, his movements honed from years of survival, tattoos flashing like war paint. Min-jae lunged, but Du Juan anticipated, pinning him against the wall in a chokehold. "This ends now," Du Juan whispered, his loyalty to Brianna and Kendra eclipsing any mercy. With a decisive twist, he eliminated the traitor, a single, silenced shot ensuring Min-jae's threat died with him. His team mopped up the rest, securing the perimeter and whisking Brianna and Kendra to safety amid the acrid smoke of gunfire. Brianna emerged from the chamber, Kendra in her arms, shaken to her core by the violence she had heard, the shouts, the shots, the finality of it all. Blood stained the floor, a grim testament to Duhuan's world. She trembled as he approached, his hands still steady from the kill, but his eyes softened upon seeing them unharmed. "It's over," he said, pulling them into an embrace, his coat smelling of rain and resolve. Brianna recoiled slightly, the brutality etching fresh scars on her soul. You killed him," she whispered, voice breaking, the image of the tattooed warrior before her clashing with the father she glimpsed. Yet, in that moment, she began to see the complexity of his love, not just possessive power, but a fierce, multifaceted devotion that wove protection through violence. He had chosen them over mercy, risking his empire to ensure their safety. As they fled the safe house under the cover of night, Brianna held Kendra tighter, glimpsing the depths of Duhuan's heart, a love as dangerous and profound as the shadows he commanded. The safe house's chaos faded into the rear view as Duhuan's convoy sped through Seoul's outskirts, leaving the city's neon grip behind. Brianna clutched Kendra close in the back seat, the child's steady breaths a fragile anchor amid the adrenaline's aftermath. Duhuan drove in silence, his knuckles white on the wheel, the tribal tattoos on his neck stark against the dashboard's glow. Minjae's betrayal had been a brutal wake-up call, exposing cracks in his empire, but it had also forged an unbreakable resolve to protect his family. They couldn't return to the mansion, not yet, with rival whispers still echoing in the syndicate's halls. Instead, he steered them to a secluded cabin nestled in the misty hills of Yangpyeong, a hidden retreat outside Seoul's sprawl, where ancient pines whispered secrets and a small stream gurgled like forgotten memories. The air was crisp, scented with earth and evergreens, a world away from the Mafia's concrete fortresses. They arrived under a canopy of stars, the cabin's wooden facade illuminated by soft lanterns. Duhuan's remaining loyalists secured the perimeter discreetly, melting into the shadows, giving them space. Inside, the space was simple yet warm, a stone fireplace crackling with fresh logs, woven rugs underfoot, and a loft where Kendra could sleep safely. Brianna settled her daughter in, tucking a blanket around her small form, Kendra's curls splayed like a halo, her features a perfect blend of their worlds. "Sweet dreams, my explorer," Brianna whispered, kissing her forehead. Downstairs, the fire's glow danced across Duhuan's face as he poured tea, his movements uncharacteristically hesitant. The violence of the night clung to him like smoke, but here, in this isolated haven, the Mafia boss seemed to shed his armor, revealing the man beneath. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Duhuan set the cups down and turned to Brianna, who stood by the window, gazing at the dark forest as if it held answers. The emotional weight of the day pressed on them, the air thick with unspoken truths. He approached slowly, his piercing eyes softening, the tattoos on his neck seeming less like marks of power and more like scars of a burdened soul. "Brianna," he began, his voice a low rumble, stripped of its commanding edge. "I can't keep this buried anymore. Your disappearance, it shattered me." He paused, running a hand through his hair, the firelight highlighting the lines etched by years of isolation. "I was a king in my world, unbreakable, but losing you cracked something fundamental. I searched everywhere not just for revenge, but because the void you left was unbearable. Power meant nothing without you." Brianna turned, her heart twisting at the rawness in his tone. She had seen him as the unyielding Mafia lord, but this confession peeled back layers, exposing a depth she hadn't anticipated. Duhuan stepped closer, his presence filling the room without overwhelming it. "When I learned about Kendra, saw her in those surveillance images, everything changed. She wasn't just an heir, she was proof of us, of the love I thought I'd lost forever." His voice cracked, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "The love I have for you both, it's far more intense than any power struggle in my world. Empires rise and fall, but this family is what I've been missing. I'd trade it all to keep you safe, to be the father she deserves, the man you once saw in me." The words hung between them, breaking down some of Brianna's walls like a tide-eroding stone. She felt the barriers she had built, forged in fear and flight, begin to crumble, old affections resurfacing like buried embers. Tears welled in her eyes as she remembered their passionate affair, stolen nights in Seoul's hidden corners, his touches igniting her soul, before the Mafia's darkness drove her away. "You say that, but how can I believe it?" she whispered, her Jamaican lilt trembling with hesitation. "I've seen your world devour everything, Kendra. She needs stability, not shadows." Yet, his vulnerability chipped at her resolve. For the first time, she glimpsed not the boss, but the shattered man who had yearned for them. The emotional intensity between them reached its peak, the cabin's seclusion amplifying every heartbeat, every breath. They confronted their past in a rush of words and touches, Duhuan pulling her into his arms, his embrace a mix of desperation and tenderness. "I was lost without you," he admitted, his forehead resting against hers. The power struggles, the betrayals, they were distractions from the pain. "But Kendra, she's our redemption." Brianna's fears spilled out. The terror of his violent life claiming their daughter, the betrayal she felt in hiding alone, the lingering pull of her love for him. "I ran to protect her, to protect us," she said, voice breaking as tears fell. "But being here, seeing you with her, it terrifies me how much I still feel." Their growing feelings ignited, lips meeting in a kiss that bridged years of separation. Passionate, raw, a confrontation of love against the odds. Yet, even in the heat, Brianna pulled back slightly, hesitant to fully trust, her hand on his chest feeling the steady beat beneath his tattoos. "I want to believe you," she murmured. "But promise me us over Empire." Duhuan nodded, the fire reflecting his solemn vow. But the night's shadows whispered that trust would be tested in the battles ahead. The cabin's seclusion had offered a fleeting sanctuary, but reality clawed back as Duhuan's scouts reported escalating threats from rival factions. "We can't stay hidden forever," he had said, his voice laced with reluctant resolve, as they packed under the dawn light. Brianna nodded, her hesitation from the confession still lingering like morning mist, but the kiss they shared had reignited a fragile hope. Kendra, oblivious to the undercurrents, chattered about dragon adventures during the drive back to Duhuan's private estate, a sprawling compound in the secluded valleys beyond Seoul, where manicured gardens, masked reinforced walls, and surveillance towers. The estate was a fortress of elegance, traditional hanok roofs curving over modern amenities, koi ponds reflecting the sky, and hidden bunkers stocked for siege. Yet, as they arrived, the air hummed with tension guards on high alert, whispers of impending war rippling through the ranks. Duhuan's shifting priorities, his time diverted to family, had created chinks in the syndicate's armor, and the wolves were circling. Inside the estate's grand hall, adorned with silk scrolls and flickering lanterns, Brianna sensed the storm brewing. Kendra played in the adjacent garden, her laughter floating through open doors like a beacon of innocence, while Duhuan pored over encrypted reports in his study. "The Lee clan and their allies are mobilizing," he told her, his tribal tattoos stark against his tense shoulders. "Minjae's betrayal was just the spark they see weakness in my distractions." Brianna's heart clenched. She had feared this, the Mafia's brutal reality crashing into their tentative peace. "Then end it," she urged, her voice a blend of fear and fire. "Choose us." Duhuan's eyes met hers, conflicted, the weight of his empire, a legacy built on blood and cunning, pulling against the love that had reshaped him. The final conflict erupted at dusk, when the estate's alarms shattered the calm. Rival Mafia factions, emboldened by rumors of Duhuan's softened stance, launched a coordinated assault. Explosions rocked the outer walls, gunfire cracking like thunder as waves of armed intruders breached the perimeter. The Lee clan's enforcers led the charge, their vehicles smashing through gates, shouts echoing in Korean and fragmented English. "The dragon falls tonight." Duhuan's loyalists rallied, turning the gardens into a battlefield, bullets zipping through the air, koi ponds staining red with blood. In the chaos, Duhuan barked orders from the hall, his presence a whirlwind of command, tattoos flashing as he wielded a concealed pistol with lethal precision. Brianna grabbed Kendra, shielding her in a reinforced panic room, the child's wide eyes reflecting the terror outside. "Mama, is Daddy fighting the bad dragons?" Kendra asked, clutching her toy. Brianna held her tight, whispering assurances, but her mind raced. This was the violence she had fled, now threatening to consume them. Amid the fray, Duhuan fought like a man possessed, dispatching assailants in the smoke-filled corridors, his mind torn between empire and family. A Lee lieutenant cornered him in the study, sneering, "Your little family has made you weak. Surrender the syndicate, or we take the girl." The words ignited a fury, but also clarity. Flashes of Kendra's smile, Brianna's touch, overwhelmed visions of power. As explosions shook the estate, rival forces closing in, Duhuan made his choice in the heart of the battle. He activated a hidden protocol, broadcasting a message to his network. "The Kang Syndicate dissolves assets to loyalists, but I walk away." It was a seismic decree, abandoning the empire he had built, but in that moment, with gunfire echoing and the estate crumbling, He prioritized the frantic calls from the panic room, Brianna's voice pleading for him to survive. The battle raged on, Du Juan leading a desperate counterattack, his strikes fueled by paternal rage. He neutralized the lieutenant in a brutal hand-to-hand clash, the man's body crumpling amid shattered vases. Reinforcements, former allies drawn by his broadcast, turned the tide, but not without cost. Gardens scorched, halls riddled with bullets. As the rivals retreated, defeated by the chaos of his abdication, Du Juan staggered to the panic room, bloodied but unbroken. He burst in, pulling Brianna and Kendra into his arms. "It's over," he gasped, his voice raw. "I chose you, both of you." In the end, Du Juan walked away from the Mafia world, the estate's ruins a testament to his decision. He vowed to protect Brianna and Kendra at all costs, severing ties to the shadows that had defined him. No more bloodshed, he promised, kneeling before them in the dim light, his tattoos now symbols of a past relinquished. He offered a future free from the violence, perhaps a quiet life abroad, blending their cultures in peace. Brianna, tears streaming, saw the redemption in his eyes, her hesitation giving way to tentative hope as Kendra hugged him tight. The empire was gone, but in its ashes, family bloomed. The estate's smoldering ruins faded into the night as Du Juan, Brianna, and Kendra fled under the cover of darkness, a small convoy slipping through Seoul's fringes like ghosts escaping a haunted past. Du Juan's abdication had sent shockwaves through the underworld, loyalists scattering assets, rivals scrambling for scraps, but he felt no regret, only a profound lightness as he glanced at Brianna in the passenger seat, Kendra asleep in her lap. "We're free," he whispered, his hand finding hers, the tribal tattoos on his neck no longer symbols of dominion but relics of a life relinquished. Brianna squeezed back, her fear ebbing like a receding tide, though traces of hesitation lingered. They drove through the dawn, leaving Korea behind, bound for a new horizon where the Mafia's shadows couldn't reach. Months later, their new home materialized in a sun-drenched villa on Jamaica's northern coast, far from Seoul's neon chaos, a place where turquoise waves lapped at white sands, and vibrant bougainvillea climbed walls of weathered stone. Du Juan had orchestrated it meticulously, liquidating hidden funds to build this sanctuary, a blend of Jamaican warmth and Korean subtlety, with open verandas overlooking the sea, a garden bursting with tropical fruits, and a library stocked with folk tales from both their worlds. No guards patrolled, no encrypted calls disrupted the days. Here, in this peaceful enclave, surrounded by the rhythmic crash of waves and the scent of salt-kissed air, Du Juan had chosen love over power, forging a life untainted by violence. He became the father he never thought he could be, shedding the Mafia boss's armor for simple joys. Mornings found him on the beach with Kendra, her tiny feet leaving prints in the sand as he taught her to build castles not of stone and strategy, but of shells and imagination. "Look, Daddy, a dragon tower!" she exclaimed, her curls dancing in the breeze, eyes sparkling with the same intensity as his. Du Juan laughed, a sound once rare, now frequent, kneeling to help, his tattoos peeking from a casual shirt like faded stories. He read her bedtime tales under the stars, weaving Jamaican legends of Anansi the spider with Korean myths of guardian spirits. His voice steady and warm, Kendra thrived in this love, her innocence blooming like the garden's hibiscus, calling him Daddy Dragon, with unbridled affection. For Du Juan, each moment was redemption. The empire's weight lifted, replaced by the profound fulfillment of fatherhood, a role he embraced with a tenderness that healed his scarred soul. Brianna watched this transformation, her heart gradually thawing in the island's gentle sun. Free from the constant dread that had shadowed her for years, she wandered the villa's paths, the fear of pursuit dissolving like mist at dawn. No more looking over her shoulder, no more whispers of danger. Instead, days filled with Kendra's giggles and the soothing cadence of waves. She joined Du Juan in the kitchen, blending Jamaican jerk spices with Korean flavors, their hands brushing in quiet intimacy. Yet, opening her heart fully was a slow, unraveling memories of betrayals and battles lingered, making trust a delicate bridge. One evening, as sunset painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson, they sat on the veranda, Kendra, asleep inside. "I see you now," Brianna said softly, her lilt carrying the island's rhythm. "Not the boss, but the man. You've given us this peace." Du Juan turned to her, his eyes deep pools of sincerity. "And you've given me everything. I was lost in power's grip. But you and Kendra, you're my true legacy." The emotional intensity built in that golden light, their growing bond a testament to redemption's quiet power. Brianna leaned in, her fingers tracing the tattoos on his neck, once marks of menace, now emblems of survival. "I was afraid to love you again," she confessed, tears glistening. "But here, away from it all, I can." Their lips met in a kiss that sealed the healing, passionate and profound, a reaffirmation of the love that had endured betrayals and battles. Du Juan held her close, vowing silently to nurture this life, surrounded by the love that had redefined him. Brianna, finally unburdened, opened her heart once more, embracing the future they built together, a tapestry of cultures, woven in peace. By morning, Du Juan Kang had no empire left, but for the first time in his life, he had everything he truly needed: the love of his family. We've reached the emotional finale, but my mom thinks I can't grow this channel to 1,000 subs with these unique stories. Let's show her. Subscribe, like, and comment if Du Juan's redemption moved you, plus where you're from. Now click that next video on your screen for more Mafia drama. Don't stop the binge.